Hello all, back for another fun-filled video. Uh, got a boom for the mic this time, so I don't have to hold it up the entire time. Not that that was overly stressing or anything, but makes things a little bit easier. So for this one, I want to talk about a place called The Hiding Place, and actually where I became a Christian. Like I said in the last video, it was in October 18th, 1992. And my God, it seems so long ago because it was. But then it doesn't. It's weird how time goes like that. It's very fast, but then you look back and it seems there are so many chapters of your life that you have that you do legitimately have chapters, and then you look back at some of those chapters and you're like, how the hell that wasn't me? You just you hope you've improved in life, and you know if you're a Christian, you should have, but yeah, you look back on some of those things and you're just it's crazy how like what you've done and you're like, no, how could I mean you wouldn't even fathom thinking that way now with certain things. Uh, but anyway, I was in New York. I was raised in L.A. like I said before, but also New York because my mom did Grease on Broadway, and we kind of went back and forth as well in New York, from LA to New York growing up. So my last couple of years of high school were in New York. So after New York, I was pretty much alone in an apartment uh, with my grandmother. But I mean, it's total X generation definition, kind of fending for yourself. I mean, yeah, fending for yourself. I had an apartment, but I mean, taking care of myself in a way in New York. But after that, I wanted to get out. And at 18, when I graduated from New York in the city, I just went straight back to LA. And my mom was already back there because I hadn't seen her for almost a couple of years. She got married again. And she was going back and trying to do her acting, to get back into acting a little bit. And she was going to this church called The Hiding Place. And, I wasn't into it really. I mean, I wasn't into the Christian thing, if you will. I mean, I didn't like hate it. I was just didn't care really. But I was still still from what I had seen of other Christians, as far as like out in TV land and stuff like that, I wasn't overly thrilled about it. So I was like, but with the thing that got me, and my mom and I were close, but then not close. Towards as a kid we were, a normal relationship, but we definitely drifted apart as we got older. Long story short, and ended up moving to Australia for 2 years at eighth, ninth grade. It was a nightmare and it was not fun. And that I pretty much at that age, I actually resented her for it for a long time, kind of pulling me out of, and I was going to school in New York then too, sixth and seventh grade. Anyway, so we came back, and I was a musician, and I actually was able to. I had some money saved from odd jobs, and was able to get a one-room place at 18 when I went back to LA, just a studio apartment, literally just a bathroom and a kitchen in the room, basically. And I think it was like 650 or something. Again, we're talking like 92. Now it'd be like 5,000 a month probably. I think it was near Wilshire. Uh, and I went to work at Kinko's before it was FedEx Kinko's, and because all the musicians and actors were there, I'm like, it's an easy job. I could do my band stuff while I was, doing that. And anyway, this place, the Hiding Place, was a church for like musicians and actors and people who in the entertainment business. And it appealed to me in that way, so I'm like, why not? So I went, and I think I went like three or four, maybe three times with, two with her, and then and then that was it with her, with my mom, and she, introduced me to the place. Then I went alone, and then I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. The priest, the pastor's name was Henry. I don't know his last name. Hiding Place isn't there anymore. It was in Los Angeles, kind of like I always called it the rock and roll church because it was cool, cool vibe, great music, not boring hymns where you sit there and want to just like nod off for the entire time. It was cool, it was cool, and some cool people there. I remember seeing. Not that I give a damn about stars. I grew up in it. I don't care. But I do remember Dave Mustaine from Megadeth being there a couple times. I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, I didn't go up to him or anything, but I remember seeing him there. And there were a couple people like that in the industry that I saw there. And And there was no. One day I went back the second time alone, and I just, Henry, the pastor, asked if, and he was cool. He wasn't like, you need to come, or do you want to come up and you can come up and accept it, or you can just sit. And I remember him saying like, or you can just sit in your chair and accept Jesus and believe in Jesus, ask him into your heart. And I did that, and and there were no, I just believed at that moment, October 18th, 1992. And I remember no bells and whistles. Some people will say, there were no fireworks, no explosions. Some people do get like a whole thing, like they feel it, or they get lights shining in the room. I'm not saying that's not legit. It is legit. I do feel that way. I do believe that. For me, it wasn't like that, but there was a moment of just a peace. I do remember that there was just a moment of peace. Just again, no bells and fireworks and all that stuff. But I looked up this verse and it's on screen. Sometimes I have my notes on the big screen here, so I can look at those. So if I'm turning, that's what I'm looking at a lot of times. But Luke 15:10. In the same way I tell you, there is rejoicing in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. That's awesome to me. I mean, I'm just looking at myself like, really? Like me? They're rejoicing, but at the time, you're not thinking about that, but you look back on verses like that, and you're like, wow, that's really, really cool. Like angels, like God's happy, he's celebrating, and these are angels who look on the face of God and rejoice that you, this one schmuck on earth, decided to believe in Jesus. But it's bigger than that. I mean, it's a huge thing, and it's bigger than even we know, I think, on earth. I know that's true. I believe that's true, because I think once we get there, we'll see how big a deal it really is for just one person to do that. I also wanted to show you my Bible. This is a Bible. This is my grandfather's Bible, and this was it's mother of pearl, and he brought it back from Israel when him and my grandmother were over there, and my mother was there too as a child. But just a really cool. I've just outlined a lot of it in yellow throughout the years. I got this in '94, I believe. I was given this, and Jesus' words aren't in red, but it's cool. It's a Revised Standard Edition, which is my favorite. And my grandfather died, just to let people know too from that last one. My grandfather died, it was about 9 months, I believe, after I was born. March, May, June, yeah, about 9 months. So he died. He got to hold me and see me born, but he passed away literally that first year. And all of my family's gone except my dad. My dad is in Italy, and he's still kicking. He would tell you he has 20 years to go, but and he might, and hopefully he does. But yeah, my mom passed away from cancer in 2007. My grandmother passed away in the late 97, I believe, of cancer as well. Or 90, yeah, somewhere around there, and late 90s. And yeah, my grandmother passed away from cancer as well in the late 90s. And my mom died actually on April Fool's Day of 2007, which I always found funny. People were like, "Oh, how horrible!" That you're making light of it. As my mom had a great sense of humor, and she was sarcastic and quick-witted, and she would laugh. I always made the joke of, "Yeah, I'm not." She would be saying, "I'm not really dead." April Fool's Day. I always thought that was funny because she would come back and tell you that she's not really dead. But yeah, cancer is a weird thing because it really has taken out all my mom's side of the family, and but not really my dad's side. I mean, my aunt had it briefly, but she was able to beat it. But no, it's a strange thing. I do believe it's the food. A lot of it, I'm in the U.S. obviously, but a lot of it is food and the way that it's processed and made, and all the stuff that you can say about that, and pharmaceutical companies and all that crap. We all know how that goes. But yeah, it's strange. But that being said, I really do. I find it interesting how some people can have this like a whole fireworks display in their heads and have that happen and feel that legitimately, and then some are just like, yeah, I believe in Jesus now. And I think people who aren't Christian, they don't understand how easy that is, and to make happen. Meaning, you just believe, snap, believe. It just hits you, and you're like, I believe. And it's like the Father has Jesus has brought you to Himself, and God has brought you to Him through Jesus, and it's awesome. It is awesome. But people are always like, this will be another video, but people are always think, oh, it's too easy. Christianity is anything but easy. I promise you that. It's very, very difficult in many ways because you're pruned, and nobody likes to, have their personality pruned, but it's the bad things, and that's a good thing because God's pruning your bad things. But it's painful as it's happening, and you got to walk a road, and a long road, and you fight, and you scream, and you get angry, and you yell out at God, and you're frustrated, and you wonder where He is, and you feel like you're losing faith sometimes, and it's just, there's a lot to it, and you're like, what am I here for? All the reasons, the litany of things you can go through, of what you're feeling. And God's, meanwhile, He loves you, and He's, you can be angry with Him and frustrated. And I think as long as you're truthful, He knows anyway, but as long as you're truthful, He'll be with you, and He'll be with you regardless of whether you're truthful or not. If you're reaching out, He's always with you. Even if you hate Him, He's with you, and He loves you, and He wants you to believe. And Jesus is always with you, and but it is not an easy road. It is not an easy road. You got to be a tough son of a gun, and I have to work on humility because I lack a lot of that. So through the years, but I've definitely had a lot of that put on me in later life, like around now and over the last couple of years, because you got to humble yourself to God, because if you're walking around like a proud moron all the time, you're not going to really get. I think it's not that God won't bless you. I just think you're not going to get all the blessings you could be getting, because God wants to bless you, but He also knows He's not going to give you things that are going to be destructive to you either, things that would hurt you. And if you remain in where, a lot of times if you remain in where you are, which is a bad place, if He gave you blessings, you would just, not do well with those things, whether it doesn't have to be money, but it can be money, or it can be opportunities or things or whatever like that, but if you're in a place where you've been through a lot and you can handle it, and He's pruned you and allowed you, if you're faithful with little, you'll be faithful with a lot, like He says. And it's a trust thing too. Again, He knows what you're going to do, but a lot of times He's waiting for you to do it. And I'm speaking this out loud because you're always in seasons and cycles like that, and I'm in one now, and it's just it's not easy. It's not easy. You just have to keep the faith, and as cliche as that is, you just have to do that. You just have to. Anyway, that is a little bit of a shorter one this time, but video. But all I want to say to that is the hiding place was a really cool place. I don't know. I don't think it's there anymore in LA, but it was a cool rock and roll kind of, church for entertainment people. And I think you get a lot of people there that would normally not go to, myself included at the time. And even now, I'm not really a church going guy because, there are a lot of bad ones out there, and there are good ones too, but there's has to be a certain vibe if I'm going to do that. And it's harder to find these days. But back then, that was one of the only ones that had that vibe. And you had a lot of people who would come to Jesus not through the pastor, but Henry was cool. He always pointed out, look to Jesus, not to him. But the way Jesus allowed him to preach was just laid back and very cool. And I remember that. And you draw people in more in the entertainment crowd who aren't going to go to some typical boring, if you will, church. And, where everyone's singing hymns that make you want to fall asleep, which again, a lot of the stuff, I'm not saying that's not legit and people don't feel towards God legitimate in that way, but everyone, what's that? It takes all kinds to make a world. Personality wise, a lot of people aren't going to be attracted to that in the entertainment industry, and I'm one of them. And I love churches that can catch the vibe of music, of cool music. I'm coming from a music perspective, and just a good atmosphere in that way, because that matters. And you draw different people in with different things, and Jesus knows that. And I think that's pretty cool. That being said, I am out of here for this second vid, and I'll be back with more eventually. No, I'll be back with more pretty soon. But wanted to let people know that just because you didn't have like a whole fireworks display in your head when you accepted Jesus and asked him to come into your heart, doesn't mean it's not real. It's absolutely real. You believe, and you can tell it's real from the answers through the years and just the things that he does and the pruning. And you don't want to do bad things because, like I said in the previous video, you don't want to grieve him. That's God working on you. So your belief is in action as it's happening as you live. Good and bad, meaning good. Bad meaning bad meaning you're going to go through some stuff that you're angry and you're frustrated with God and you feel tired and I guess that's not bad technically because you're going through the motions, but you got to stick around with him. You got to keep walking, and it's always going to end up good with him. If not here, it's going to end up good by your belief in heaven after you die here. Not everything works out perfectly on this earth. It just doesn't. But believing in him will ultimately work out perfectly. Even if it's not here, it will. That being said, always go with Jesus. I'll talk to you next time.